Chan, who also teaches at Harvard University. Now, they have impacted not only their disciplines, they've also made a big impact globally in terms of their research, their teaching, and service to humanity, especially through interfaith dialogue. These two gentlemen worked tirelessly to promote peace globally, as well as in the sub-region of West Africa. And in celebrating these two great giants, we also celebrate all Gambians, friends of the Gambia, who have made an impact on this country. So it is really a celebration of all who have made an impact and continue to make an impact on this country. The Nyang Sanneh Institute was set up to further the legacies of these great giants, and in doing so, to endeavor and promote social science, problem-solving research in order to provide data, not only to government, but other entities that may have interest in these kinds of information. The Nyang Sanneh Institute is also explicitly committed to social justice and groups, as I said earlier, that have been disenfranchised. We are particularly concerned as well about the diaspora, who are our main source of funding, support, research, and so forth and so on. Historically, they have been disenfranchised and marginalized. And we are committed in one way or another to ensure that they become full members of this polity. Interfaith dialogue men, Professor Saine and Nyang, work tirelessly globally to engender peace nationally, regionally, and globally. In other words, they sought to build sustainable, positive peace in an effort to promote justice everywhere. This, in a nutshell, is the raison d'etre of the Nyang Sanneh Institute. Very briefly. On December 18th, 2023, the Nyang Sanneh Institute celebrated its first birthday following a lunch at the Kairaba International Conference Center. It is an important milestone, punctuated with many successes that are helping to sharpen and to shape the vision, the mission, and the strategic plans of the Institute. Today, a year since its launch, the NSI is on firm footing, guided by a collective leadership governance model, with each and all playing a very vital role in its success. Our NSI renews its commitment to conducting research and deepening social and economic justice for all in our society. The coming year promises to be exciting and productive, and I left basically feeling dizzy because of the so many awards and accolades. She is, in a nutshell, a woman of substance who has distinguished herself as a very prominent international lawyer. Of course, she served as Attorney General and Minister of Justice in the Gambia. Of course, she's most better known as the Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. Let's give her. She currently serves as Gambia's High Commissioner to the UK. I must say that this is indeed a very spectacular record of excellence. Leadership, service to her native Gambia, the UN system, and certainly globally at the ICC and many other places. Her Excellency is the recipient of numerous awards, and I'll only list a few. Otherwise, we risk being here till later on. She is the recipient of the International Judas Award, which was given to her in 2009. In 2011, Her Excellency received an award from the World Peace Through Law. She also received, in 2015, the Peace Prize by the United Nations Association of Spain. And she has been listed by Forbes at least twice, Time magazine, New Africa, Foreign Policy, you name it, as one of the 50 or 100 most influential thinkers and leaders in the world. One of the most influential persons is going to address us this afternoon or this evening. And we cannot be prouder. And the fact that she is also one of us. We celebrate you. We don't celebrate our heroes very often. In addition to receiving several honorary doctorate degrees, Dr. Bensouda and her ICC office were also nominated for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize. And to me, really, that is the crown of our very distinguished career. She has worked tirelessly to promote women and gender, especially as it relates to sexual violence, gender-based violence. And I will end with this award. In 2018, in particular, Her Excellency joined the eminent roster of international gender champions. Give it up for Fatou. And please join me in warmly welcoming Her Excellency, Dr. Fatou Bensouda, as the NSI inaugural keynote speaker 2023. So there's a short poetry reading by Chernobyl, who also doesn't need an introduction. He's a big poet in Gambia.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
And also part of the NSI.
Yeah. Good evening. The names here are very big, and that always makes me nervous in a way. And so, because the lecture is on law, I had to come up with something that was a little balanced. But I'm not sure I properly memorized this poem, so I'm going to say what I always say. If I miss a line, just smile and clap, okay? This poem is called The God of the Sun. The God of the Sun. And here we go. If A, B, and C directly lead to D, then 1 plus 2 plus 3 must equal D. Call that deductive logic. One judge to rule them all, one rule to judge them all. So how do you explain creatio ex nihilo, because God is philosophical like that? And maybe the law is not good. Maybe it is the less we can manage because we are sophisticated like that. Placed on the axis of two cardinal points, we can't be one without the other. So Judas had to complete Jesus because there is no Christ without the cross. And maybe the law is how we manifest God's image in us. He gives life and takes it. We guarantee the right to life, the death sentence. You see, Moses did not come down from the mountain with 10 suggestions. They were commandments. And because God is a dictator like that, democracy has never been about the people. Because people will be people, and people are not perfect, so the law cannot be. Limited in the things we know, eyes open, but we can't see. We wrote down lies to hide monsters across borders, build bridges to cross over bodies, and drown souls, chasing global goals, legal norms, judicial roles. We've got all the laws, but still can't rule. If the truth truly sets you free, then justice must be the lost and never found miracle child of the imagination we keep chasing, because the light at the end of the tunnel could be the same light that cooks your food and still burns your house down. So my question is, which of the truths that truly sets you free is truly the truth? Because perfection is in orbit, testing our habits, too high for us to master, but within knowledge for us to keep trying. Misunderstanding the lesson of the past, we keep overcompensating. Equality is the modern weapon in an unsolved crime. The biblical scenes of the father, the ghost of Adolf Hitler, so I ask, is Ra ill? The Egyptian god of the sun? No, he is fine. I'm talking about the children of Jacob, the genocide criminals, murdering children in cold blood while playing victims. But maybe I am wrong. Maybe 1 plus 2 plus 3 does not equal D. Maybe 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6 million. And if the lesson we learn from that is that it is okay to murder the innocent children among them while the whole world watches, then maybe A, B, and C don't lead directly to D. Maybe A, B, and C lead directly to 5,500 murdered Palestinian children. And maybe when we tell that story, just maybe, we should say, we were killers too. Thank you.
That's a fitting warm-up for the guest speaker. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the brother, Dr. Saine, and the members of the Nyang Sanneh Institute, Your Excellency, the representative of the American Ambassador, Your Excellency, Ambassador to the Gambia from Senegal, our sister nation, President of the Bar, congratulations, I take the opportunity to do that, and the immediate past President of the Gambia Bar Association. I recognize several brothers and sisters here today, and I give you my salutations. I especially recognize Dr. Salah, of course, Bax, and so many of you that are present here today. I thank you for coming to have this discussion about our country, the Gambia. Of course, I recognize my sister Jaina Banyan, who's also here. But ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, honored guests, it is a great pleasure indeed and a profound sense of responsibility that I address you today as we gather for the inaugural lecture of the Nyang Sanneh Institute. And this institution, named after very distinguished figures in the field of international law, represents a significant milestone in our shared pursuit of knowledge and justice. As the High Commissioner of the Gambia to the United Kingdom and the former Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, I find myself at the intersection of global affairs and the intricate dynamics that shape our world. Our theme, the interplay of international law, global justice, and local dynamics, invites us to delve into the complexities of our interconnected world. International law, the bedrock upon which our global society rests, seeks to establish norms and standards that transcend borders. It is a beacon of hope that guides nations towards cooperation, towards diplomacy, and the resolution of conflicts through peaceful means. However, the effectiveness of international law is deeply intertwined with the local dynamics of individual nations. Each society is a unique tapestry woven from historical, cultural, and socio-political trends. The challenge lies in reconciling the universal principles of justice with the nuances of local contexts. The Nyang Sanneh Institute, I believe, will play a pivotal role in unraveling this intricate web and fostering a deeper understanding of how international law can be applied meaningfully within diverse communities. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished scholars, honored guests, as we contemplate the pursuit of global justice, we must confront the stark reality that justice is not always swift or accessible. The wheels of justice often turn slowly, and in our collective pursuit of accountability for grave crimes, we must address the urgent need to expedite legal processes. The Nyang Sanneh Institute, with its commitment to research and scholarship, can contribute significantly to the development of mechanisms that ensure timely and effective justice on the global stage. This theme also urges us to consider the role of institutions and individuals in upholding the principle of international law. The Nyang Sanneh Institute, with its scholarly endeavors, can serve as a catalyst for nurturing the next generation of legal minds and advocates for global justice. Education, awareness, and ethical leadership are essential components in fortifying the foundations of international law and ensuring its relevance in our ever-evolving world. And in navigating the interplay of these elements, we must be mindful of the need for a balanced and inclusive approach. While upholding universal principles, we must respect and appreciate the diversity of local cultures and traditions. A dialogue that recognizes and accommodates different perspectives is crucial for fostering cooperation and understanding on the global stage. As some of you in the audience may be aware, I had the privilege to say a few words on the inauguration of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission of the Gambia, which was held here. And today, I am pleased to be back to share with you some reflections. Today's event and the discussions that follow provides a unique opportunity to engage in discussions of the rule of law and its dividends for the country. Indeed, today's gathering is a testament to our shared belief in the law and confronting past wrongs as both necessary and powerful tool to protect and advance the rights of the most vulnerable against unchecked rule and conduct, to confront our past and strive together for a better tomorrow. Indeed, the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, to my mind, was a tangible national expression and belief in the recognition that in order for the country to move forward to greater heights, it must reckon with its past. It must engage in good faith effort to uncover past wrongs. It must identify and hold those most responsible accountable, provide for the answers and indeed the recognition and justice that victims and affected communities so deeply yearn for and desire. As we know, the Commission had the important mandate to investigate human rights violations and abuses committed between July 1994 to January of 2017 in order to foster social cohesion and encourage national reconciliations among Gambians, to address impunity and to recognize the rights and dignity of victims through the provision of appropriate reparations. With 11 commissioners drawn from all the major regions of the country, representing the richness of the Gambian diversity and its 5 main ethnic groups, as well as religions, and with highly skilled investigators and prosecutors lending their services to the Commission set out its important work since it was formed 5 years ago, I believe. In truth, in addition to truth-seeking, the reconciliation component of the Commission was a key to restorative justice and ensuring any societal fissures are managed through a well-reflected, structured, objective, and inclusive process, where victims can fully participate to tell their stories, and where forgiveness, as appropriate, and reconciliation can take root. And I commend the work of the commissioners and the staff of the commission and salute those who have participated and engaged with the process to establish the facts and in search of the truth. Truth and reconciliation commissions are not an exercise in settling political scores or vendetta, but an objective professional undertaking in the service of the nation and must be seen as such. The Commission's espousal of twin principles of inclusivity and transparency was, in my view, key as it allowed Gambians and victims groups to get involved, be heard, and feel meaningfully engaged with the process. I believe the work of the Commission and its 2021 report are most important, having reckoned with the past and laid the foundation to ensure accountability is had for past atrocities and to help the nation move forward ever stronger. With the government accepting all but 2 of the Commission's 275 recommendations, it was by that measure alone a successful endeavor. Apart from recommending accountability for those responsible for atrocities, other recommendations of the Commission were just as important through suggestions for reform to prevent office holders from abusing power and violating fundamental human rights, civic education, reconciliation and social cohesion, as well as reparations to victims. Such self-reckoning within society is never easy, and there will always be challenges, But it should be an objective assessment of the work of the Commission, is that one looks favorably on the endeavor and what I hope to be its enduring legacy. Never again must not simply be polemics, but rather mean tangible, actionable norms in practice. It is my sincere hope that the Commission's work will indeed strengthen our collective resolve to ensure that the sanctity and inviolable rights of all Gambians from all walks of life are never trampled upon by power and political expediency. After all, the social contract with the government means that the latter, as the government, has at its first and fundamental obligation to protect citizenry and do all that it can to ensure the protection and prosperity of the nation. I commend the leadership of President Barrow for conceiving and enabling the work of the Commission, and also recommitting Gambia to its international legal obligations, international treaties and organizations that help advance the country's interest and prestige at home and abroad. Implementation, therefore, is key. And what we have done with the Commission must not be seen as an exercise in futility. The test must always be the country's national interest, and with strategic acumen and clarity of purpose, we can ensure that the Gambia is a success story at home, in the continent, and on the global stage. Ladies and gentlemen, these are indeed exciting times for the Gambia, with opportunities for legal reform, following a mapping of priorities and means weighed against other state objectives to advance the national interest. While taking pride in many virtues of our lovely country, we must also recognize that there is so much work to be done. There can be no doubt that what we all want to see is the Gambia prosper with democratic values, firmly entrenched and practiced, and the rule of law and human rights respected and advanced. History has shown that establishing the rule of law and a healthy, well-functioning judicial system are fundamental prerequisites to political stability and economic growth in any country. While in terms of conflict and dictatorship, corruption and war or black market economies, while they may thrive, the net result is economic and social decay, damage to the infrastructure, overall economy, development, and investment in the country. Therefore, to the extent that greater constitutionality and accountability through the vector of the law can deter cronyism, conflict, war-making, and the commission of destabilizing crimes, certainly then, criminal justice at the national or international level and greater adherence to the rule of law can play an important role in our economic growth and prosperity. There is a lot that Gambia can and still do to re-energize and strengthen its judicial system. Gambia must make strengthening its legal sector a national priority. Greater devotion to the Constitution and constitutionality requires a capable and a sizable corpus of legal professionals committed to safeguarding the rule of law and the Constitution against any attempt at usurping the rights and limits it prescribes for a free and a democratic Gambia. An investment in law and the rule of law promises great dividends for the future of the country. In the ever-competitive 21st century, the Gambia cannot afford underinvestment or neglect its legal system. The independence of the judiciary is also critical to the rule of law and the constitutionality being alive and well in the Gambia. If I may now share a personal conviction. In a decade from now, I'd like to see the Gambia, and even the African continent as a whole, emerge with fully developed infrastructure, continuous economic growth, reducing poverty, and creating ample opportunity for its young population, so that they can constructively contribute and share their country's and their continent's future. A country that reverses its brain drain problem and increasingly engages its vast and influential diaspora to direct it towards bigger and better successes. It is estimated that by 2050, Africa will have the greatest potential among all continents in respect of its young and dynamic labor force. Cultivating this enormous potential must be a strategic imperative for African countries, especially for the Gambia. The responsibility, indeed, imperative to educate and train this vibrant population should be obvious. Such an investment will in time beget a powerful force for the emergence of a larger middle class, higher standards of living and enduring social peace and stability. Through such critical investment in Africa's richest resource, its dynamic young population, the Gambia, and other countries can secure a bright future for the continent. A society that is safe, nestled in comfort and unshakable constitutionality, can achieve these imperatives. Dear friends and colleagues, let me take a moment to briefly talk about my convictions and how I approached my work at the ICC, first as its deputy prosecutor and later as its chief prosecutor, to give you some perspective. Let me emphasize first that seldom have major advances in human progress traveled the path of least resistance. The fight against impunity will have its successes, but it will also have its challenges. Some 12 years ago, in 1912, when I assumed office as the first woman and first African chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, I stated that justice, real justice, is not a pick and choose system. And to be effective, to be just, and to be a real deterrent, my work at the Office of the Chief Prosecutor, my activities, and my decisions must be based solely on the law and the evidence. The court may operate in a political environment, but its work must be shielded and free from the winds and whims of politics when those strengths are not aligned with our collective obligations under the Rome Statute. And during my tenure, I did my utmost to live by these convictions in the service of the Rome Statute. I strove throughout my term to honorably and with integrity discharge a complex, multifaceted mandate with independence and impartiality, but without fear or favor. I sought to focus not on the words and propaganda of a very few influential individuals whose aim was to evade justice, but rather to listen to the millions of victims who look to the court as a beacon of hope, as the last bastion of justice and accountability for atrocity crimes, where the law, their protector, has otherwise fallen silent. We must remain vigilant to ensure that international criminal justice remains principled and objective, and it is not co-opted as a convenience instrument in the service of politics. This is the only way to ensure that international justice can contribute to the progress of humanity and a higher civilization for future generations. For me, it was critical to continue to stand firm in our resolve and speak with one voice that the commission of mass atrocities as merely politics by other means will no longer receive a pass, and that the perpetrators, irrespective of rank or official status, must answer for their crimes. We must continue to work for the victims of society as atrocity crimes who look to the court as a last beacon of hope. As long as there was jurisdiction, as long as my court could move, I have moved. Its defense, the defense of international justice, must equally be strong, if not stronger, even when the court's activities might not always be politically convenient. This is, after all, at the heart of why the court was originally founded, that atrocities that shock our collective conscience must be subjected to the power of the law and legal scrutiny. For the sake of the victims of atrocity crimes, we must not lose the progress made towards the culture of accountability as an essential pillar of a rule-based multilateral order. We cannot undo the suffering of the past or the horrors of history, but we must have a joint responsibility not to repeat them. International criminal justice, as well as international human rights law, have strived in the second half of the century to be clear. Mass crimes, of course, still occur far too frequently. We see what is happening around the world today. And indeed, the International Criminal Court, and particularly our country, the Gambia, who have the opportunity of transitional justice to the continued commission of atrocities and violation of human rights throughout the world. We must continue to strive. Nevertheless, and this is very important in my view, the paradigm has shifted. It has become universally accepted that all human beings have inherent rights and dignity. It came to be universally believed that the human rights and dignity of each of us must be protected for the dignity of that individual, but also for the good of all of us. In our times, humanity should no longer accept that victims of gross human rights violations suffer in silence. We, as peoples and nations of the world, embrace the notion that no longer should the perpetrators of the world's most heinous crimes be allowed to escape justice. And this is a powerful idea. This is the world I believe in, and it is one in which many of you present here, I know, and elsewhere, also believe in. Yet, ladies and gentlemen, today, we are facing immense challenges. Dark forces and extremism aim to divide our societies, and our resolve to live up to the promises of accountability and human rights and dignity for all. Human rights and the fight against impunity are under a unique attack. Our new century has already seen countless destabilizing conflicts around the world, resulting in great losses in innocent blood and national treasure. Regrettably, each year, countless children, women and men are either affected or they fall victim to unimaginable atrocities and extremism. Grave crimes in many conflicts around the world shock our collective conscience and threaten the peace the security, and the well-being of the world. It is thus more important than ever today that we curb the destructive impact of conflicts and rising extremism on civilians. It is more important than ever that today that we stand up against the erosion of human rights. Today, it is more important than ever that we do not cave into the pressures of state power plays and real politics that aim to do away with international criminal justice or domestic justice and the rule of law. Today, it is more important than ever that we do all we can to ensure that security, stability, and the protective embrace of the law become a reality to be relished by all in all corners of the world. Under the critical watch of history, we must not allow never again to ring hollow, to taunt the memory of the victims of atrocity crimes. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our children and to the future generation to nurture the International Criminal Justice Project and human rights. Ending impunity and bringing justice to victims of atrocity crimes are not the preserve of any one institution. It is a common goal and aspirations that tie us all together in our shared quest for justice, peace, and stability. Only together will we achieve what we have set out to do and create a culture of accountability. Let me call on all of us to recommit ourselves today and henceforth to continue working together with resolve to ensure the rule of law always defines our ethos and shines ever radiantly over our beloved homeland. Let us recommit as a people to consistently resist any attempt to subvert or weaken laws or institutions at the national or international level, and that protect and safeguard the rule of law in the Gambia and beyond. Allow me to conclude by observing that, when properly understood, in this new century, on balance, Africa has indeed demonstrated a growing commitment to the rule of law and accountability, including for atrocities. And I earnestly hope that despite many setbacks and challenges that persist, the Gambia, our Gambia, will continue to move in the positive direction. And as we travel this path towards ever-strengthening law-based societies, I am confident that the Gambia will continue to play their critical role to preserve the dignity and the sanctity of human rights in the Gambia, on the continent, and across the globe. As Gambian, we are one people on one land. It is our collective responsibility to ensure a future that is brighter than yesterday for our children and for future generations. On the pillars of the rule of law, democracy, and reinvigorated national energy across the sectors, a stronger, ever more prosperous Gambia since independence is on the horizon. We have to believe that, and we have to make that work. That vision is closer today, I believe, than any time since the country's founding. Finally, and in conclusion, let me say this. The Nyang Sanneh Institute embarks on a noble journey, one that seeks to eliminate the path towards a more just and equitable world. Let our discussions today be the catalyst for future collaborations, research endeavors, and policy advancement that transcend borders and contribute to the betterment of humanity. Thank you, and may the Nyang Sanneh Institute be a source of inspiration and enlightenment for generations to come. Jërëjëf Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you for that inspiring and very critical analysis, exploring the intersection domestic and international, which is oftentimes a very hazy area. Let me take this moment once more to thank Dr. Bensouda for that very inspiring lecture, one that really explored the intersection between, on one hand, domestic law and international law. Very hazy, to say the least. Her Excellency has agreed to entertaining some questions. She's given us a lot of food for thought. And I would invite anybody who wants to ask a question to do so. But before we get to the question and answer period, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to recognize so many friends and former colleagues, including Abdoulie, aka Bax, Usman Yabo, Njoguba, Dr. Abdoulie Sala, Hussein Ungam, who is also a big supporter. Demba Balde and his wife just walked in, Aisha, Fatfai, Aji Fatfai, and so many others. We cannot name all of you, but we do appreciate. I think Jilan Fai is also here. We really appreciate your presence and the support that you run. Questions? Anybody? Oh, Haruna Drami is also in the house. So is Bakari Samko, Dr. Bakari Samko. And Habib Bhai. Any questions? Or comments?
Thank you very much, Professor. My little senior and sister, what I would like to lecture. I just wanted you to perhaps say something to those who think that we should just let bygones be bygones. I mean, the need for accountability. Just to explain it, in the Gambian context, it's very easy for people to say, oh, we're going to make a fat you know. And what danger if we do not see this process through? What danger for the Gambia? Just, you know, a little bit of that.
Thank you, Madam President of the Gambia. I think that was a very crucial, very critical question or comment that you have made. And maybe I would just speak from my experience because I have worked with societies, communities that have gone through atrocity, crimes, and conflict, and in which always the issue became at the end peace versus justice. Peace versus justice, meaning that you put aside justice and just try to negotiate peace. And throughout my career, I have always said that we cannot neglect justice and accountability. We cannot leave one for the other. They must work side by side. They must work side by side, because what can happen if justice is sacrificed at the altar of peace, or whatever we want to call it, you always find that there is a cycle. There is a cycle of violence, and whether we want it or we do not want it, it will again rear its ugly head sometime in the future. And it is always advisable that we try to stop this violence from recurring again. And one of the ways, of course there are several ways, and reconciliation is part of it. Definitely, this is why I have commended the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was set up. But at the same time, there must be justice and accountability. It is very, very important for any society, for any community to heal, to move forward, knowing that they were also able to get justice and accountability for what has happened. Now, what the government does in the end is really to be looked at very, very carefully, but I do believe that justice must never be sacrificed at the altar of political expediency.
Good evening. My name is Usman Yabo. I come from Bukama, former director of Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, Tango. I just want to thank Dr. Bensouda for the brilliant lecture that he has given a moment ago. Unfortunately, I came a little bit late into the show, but I just want to also identify myself as part of Nyang Sanneh Institute. I will be coordinating the interfaith dialogue. And I think in any country where you advocate for peace, I think the first pillar should be how do you bring together the various religions. For Gambia, of course, we have Muslim and Christianity, but there are other religions. How do we nurture? How do we nurture that relationship to ensure that we maintain the peace in this country? It is important because if you look around the world, most of the conflict areas have some religious background. And so we must save that against those things. As based on your experience, what can we do as an institute to ensure that we continue bringing people together, particularly interfaith religious, different religions, to ensure peace and tolerance in this country? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yabo, for your presence. And also to commend you, you're also doing very important work. Religion is part of our lives. We, especially in our community, we're born, we practice our faith, we are trained in our faith, we are taught in our faith, and really is part of our life. That's what I can say. Just like it is part of the lives of others who practice other religions. And until now, I believe we have had good religious tolerance in our country. This must go on. We cannot do anything to jeopardize that. We, even in one family, you find that there are people practicing different ways. That's just the way the community and the society is woven. This is the reality of what we have and what we are. And perhaps one of the things that I would recommend is to continue the dialogue. We must talk to each other. We must continue to talk to each other. If we all go in our different corners and then talk to ourselves, it can create a lot of misunderstanding, and this is what can break the tolerance and togetherness that we have always had. I mean, nobody should not be allowed or should be allowed not to practice their religion. That is their religion. We must all be tolerant of that. So let us continue to have the dialogue. Let us have the tolerance between us. Let everybody practice what they want to practice. That is their religion. And continue to live in a community that we all grew up in, and that we all, I mean, many of us today, even this Christmas, you see that Muslims are celebrating Christmas along with Christian families and friends. This is what we have known. For Tabaski and other Muslim feasts, we have our Christian brothers and sisters joining us to celebrate. So this is what makes a society move forward. You must have the liberty, you must have the human right to be able to practice freely your religion and not have any interference from any other. This is how I see it, and I believe dialogue is important. In the form of seminars, in the form of talking to one another, but talking, just talking, it is important.
Thank you very much, Professor Sen, and thank you, my guests. I have the privilege of following my guests. Not too many people have that privilege. But as an economist, we always think of comparative advantages and competitive advantages. 1994 saw saw the release of Nelson Mandela from jail. 1994 saw the end of genocide in Rwanda. 1994 saw the death of democracy in the Gambia. What lessons or what parallels can we draw from the experiences in South Africa and also from Rwanda? Thank you.
Thank you, my dear brother, and thank you for that and drawing up this comparison or these events that fortunately and unfortunately took place in the Gambia and in South Africa and also in Rwanda. As you know, starting from South Africa, it was a great thing for everyone, all over the world, for democracy, for rule of law, for human rights, for everything you name. It was great to see that Nelson Mandela, was released from prison and became the president of that great country. But you also saw that it didn't end there when as far as atrocity crimes and human rights abuses were concerned. South Africa also did set up a commission, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And they went through the process, and in the end, recommendations were made. Unfortunately, I think all the way that they were expected to go, unfortunately, didn't happen. And until today, it is taken as kind of a shortcoming that South Africa did not go all the way, and especially regarding justice. I do not wish that for them, but you can also see that there has been serious attempts, at committing crimes in South Africa, especially even in these recent years. This has been happening, and this is many analysts are saying that South Africa should have gone ahead and hold people accountable for what has happened in South Africa, especially all those years that we had apartheid and lack of social justice there. When it comes to Rwanda, you will also see that it happened in Rwanda, and indeed the United Nations did set up the ICTR, which was following the Rwanda genocide. And the ICTR has done its work. They have tried, but for them also, and for the United Nations, using Chapter 7 to set up that court, as they did for former Yugoslavia, it was critically important that justice has to be part of the components to be able to reconcile the Rwanda people. And we have the Rwandese, and we have seen that ICTR has worked very hard. Many, many people have been brought to justice. I have had the privilege of working at the ICTR, and we had our very own Chief Justice, Hassan B. Jallo, who was the Chief Prosecutor at the ICTR. I also had the privilege of working with him. And so many, today the court has closed ICTR, but we have the residuary mechanism, to be able to see what we do with those people who are caught after, because there are still people at large who were caught after the court closed. So it's still in process, and we also have our very own Abu Bakr Sambedu, who is the registrar of that court. So there are, I'm saying these things to show that there are attempts for justice to be done, whether it's transitional justice or whether it's justice accountability. It must be part of any process that we undertake. I know Gambians were like that, just by a goyala. That's what we know. That's part of our culture. I think, even maybe I'm mistaken, but I think we forgive and we forget. We try to forget, but there are some crimes that perhaps extend, those borders of, just leave it. Let's just have peace and so. Because when we talk about justice, we talk about deterrence. We talk about deterrence. The very fact that someone would think of, oh my God, if I do this, this is what can happen to me, is a deterrent factor. It will stop others from wanting to try it. So, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. And give the mic to Mrs. Jubedalo.
Let me thank my dear sister, Her Excellency, for a very instructive, educative, and delivery. A statement that is full of wisdom, learning a lot, and so many things. But I want to just make a very simple comment. What I notice is the protagonists, these perpetrators of violence, impunity, injustice, at the national, international stage, are adults most of the time who have gone through a socialization system in the home unit, family unit, in the school system, most of the time, in their communities. And I think if we are looking at issues like impunity, we must find out what the root causes are. And I think the root causes actually start from the community level, where they're socialized, from the family, and in the school system. And I don't think we're addressing this issue at that level. Recently, I noticed that the Minister of Education introduced civic education in the curriculum. And I think that was a very good move. We must begin to catch our citizens young and instill in them the values that we want to see in them when they grow up as adults. And we're not doing that. We go to the family units, we're not getting that. I believe the way we were brought up and the way young people are brought up today are entirely different. Those values are not instilled in them. You go to the school system, it's worse. It's worse. And I know that, I believe that something has to be done at that level. And I believe the Nyang Sanneh Institute should be able to come up with some projects that will address it. I don't know how it's going to be done, but I'm always concerned about getting our children to promote the right values when they become adults. And the best way to do it is through the schools. And
Okay. Because there are so many people who want to ask questions, we're going to take them in clusters. 3 questions all together. That way we'll give you a chance to respond to those questions. We have my friend and brother, Armand Fatou, and the Patterson. I always tease him. He always makes a lot of disclaimers before he begins.
Hopefully it's not necessary to make such a disclaimer today, because I'm in the presence of my first boss in the Gambia. As a very young lawyer, she showed us the way how to do government lawyering. And I also want to pay tribute to her for her international service. She has distinguished herself. So when we honor her, when we pray for her, we are actually honoring ourselves. Attorney General Fatou Bensouda, I take note of your discourse, because you emphasize the importance of reforms. I'm sorry, this point, I have to stand up so that I can face you now. I'm so sorry. You made mention about the importance of reforms, legal reforms. I just want to know from your own experience how reform champions can be incentivized. The role of leadership in organizational growth. How does mentorship comes into this, because we have seen in a relatively short period of our history in our new democracy a lot of tendencies that Nijuka has referred to just now. I think leadership and mentorship and leadership, these are continuous processes that can really help the transformation process. And really, we are very proud that we are in your presence today to share thoughts and experiences. Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you, Mami.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I have a couple of questions. It's going to be combo. One is more personal. The other one has something to do with the TRC. Personally, in the sense that Fatou Bensouda, Her Excellency, come from Afghan, what I would call the hood, walking to Gambia High, 1973. What happened to that young lady? Something happened. They're talking about a global phenomenon. What happened to that lady that came out of Abdoulie? The second question has something to do with the TRC. When I listen to your speech, you talk about the will of justice. Move slowly, and I get that. But there are cynics like us that do believe that there is a lot more to it than just the will of justice moving slowly. We're saying there is something else, something more political. Can you give us hope that it's just a question of will of justice? Because there's always going to be one election cycle after another. And how would that interfere with that will of justice? It's good to see you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that brilliant presentation. I do agree with you, and I think many of us here agree that our societies and communities should be governed by rule of law, and there should be accountability. My question is that if you look at international events, it appears to me that there is one form of law for one group of countries, and there's an order for different types of countries. For example, we now have the Ukrainian-Russian war that is going on, and we all know how it started. We know that the United States is not part of the IIC. How do you hold such countries accountable when they are also part of the United Nations Security Council, where one veto can just stop everything in its track? And how can you give us hope that such countries, if they are culpable of committing crimes, can be held accountable as everybody else?
Thank you. We will give Her Excellency the opportunity to respond to this bonus question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for all those questions, and really for making this debate very interesting for all of us. I think we are all here to learn from one another, because that is just how the way of the world should be. We should be learning from one another. I do not think that anybody can claim to know everything at the same time. So we learn. And I'm happy to receive your questions. My sister, Juka, I recognize your presence. Thank you very much for coming. But also, yours was a comment. And I totally agree with you, totally agree, that we must continue as parents to try and instill these values in our children. Because, sometimes when you're sitting in these big tribunals, whether it's at the ICTR or elsewhere, and you see the people that are supposed to have committed these crimes, they come before you. They are no different from between you and I. They are just people who have gone through their civic education, who have gone through occupying important positions in life. And when the conflict sparks, whether for tribal reasons, whether for ethnic reasons, whether for religious reasons, And when you have the leaders of those conflicts, so to speak, instigating others, because to commit genocide, you must first dehumanize the other person. You must. That, you know, in Rwanda, you remember they called them cockroaches, and they called the Tutsi all sorts of names, and they made sure that people who were of the other tribe would really see these people as nothing. They are not humans. They do that first before they commit genocide. So they feel very, let's say, free in themselves to attack them and to kill them, because to them, they're not humans anymore. We've seen what is happening in Gaza. I must mention that. You see what is happening in Gaza today, and the way that they're seeing the Palestinians, and the paralysis that the whole world is going into, and those crimes keep happening. So these are things that we must always, we cannot be tired. We must always, as parents, as teachers, as community leaders, to continue to instill these values in the generations that are coming after us. And we have not seen anywhere in the world where conflict, military action has really made things better. In fact, the societies get worse after these interventions happen. We've seen what has happened in Libya and all of that. So yes, I agree that this is very, very important that we start also thinking about this. And I'm very, very happy to see my dear Alma Vital here with us. And I just remember the very enthusiastic new member of staff that I had, you know, who wanted to do a lot of things at the same time, always very, very interested and very, very active in the law. Almami, I don't quite remember, because I had not started writing your question. Yes. Mentoring. Of course. That is yes, indeed. Almami, I think mentoring is very, very important in any organization, in any institution. Mentoring is important. What I always say, or what I used to say with my staff at the ICC, is that I was not going to be there forever. Those of us who were the leaders were not going to be there forever, and we must prepare the next generation to pass on the baton. But we cannot just pass it on to some people who have not been mentored, they've not been trained. We as leaders did not give them the opportunity to take initiatives, to be able to be brave and bold and come forward. As leaders, we have that responsibility, actually. We do have the responsibility to ensure that we're handing over to a younger generation that is disciplined, that knows what they're doing, that will take the country forward, and who are also ready to pass on to generations to come. This is how I believe that the world should move. You know, we must always provide that very particular leadership and mentorship to those who are coming after us. It is a must. I always say that for me, I don't only see it as a responsibility, but I think it's a duty, actually. It is a duty that those of us who lead think also about those of us who are coming after us. And we make sure that we put them in a good position where they can take this country forward, where they can take the institution or whatever organizations they are, where they can take it forward with confidence and, you know, being trained and experienced as we have given them. So thank you very much, Almami, for that question. I think there's a question from Musa Jang. Musa Jang that asked for where is that Fatou bomb? I'm here. This is what we see. What you see. I'm here, and I have, of course, tried as much as I can to always work, you know, to hard work and to work with integrity, but always not keep putting myself first, but the country, the Gambia. For me, the Gambia is first. And what happens to the Gambia is of utmost and particular interest to me, even while I was away. And the fact that what can make me proud was the fact that when always they say, oh, where is she from? When they ask for your name, they ask, where is she from? I'm from the Gambia. I cannot be abroad and then not let the Gambia flag to fly. It has to fly and fly very high. So I've put my head down and worked and did what I can. So this is Fatou Bensouda here today. Fatou from Hafda, opposite KG5. Yes. You raised a very important question on double standards. And maybe the best way that I can just explain is, let's say with respect to the ICC. You know, ICC has suffered a lot of criticism because of the fact that not every country is a member of the ICC. Not every country, especially the so-called big powers. You know, the US is not part of the ICC, China is not part of the ICC, India is not part of the ICC, Russia is not part of the ICC. And ICC's jurisdiction, we can only, ICC, I'm still saying we, ICC can only intervene in situations where, first and foremost, you are a state party to the Rome Statute. You are part of the ICC, meaning you've ratified the Rome Statute, and you are counted as a state party. Secondly, ICC can also intervene in situations where perhaps the United Nations Security Council refers a situation to the ICC when they are not a state party to the ICC. That's Sudan and Libya, as an example. Or where a country decides to make a declaration under Article 12, accepting the jurisdiction of the ICC. This was done by Ukraine, and I had opened investigations in Ukraine before being out, and also Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire was not a state party. They first accepted jurisdiction, and then they ratified the Rome Statute. So they do not have that problem again. But as long as we do not have these criteria fulfilled, ICC cannot move into that situation. People have to understand that. We cannot. And states are not forced to ratify ICC statute. You go by your own volition, own free will, and you ratify and you become part of the ICC. So the problem is that when ICC, for instance, does not intervene in Yemen, it's because Yemen is not a state party. And the UN Security Council, that should perhaps refer the situation to the ICC, does not, because of political reasons. We don't go and tell them, refer this person. They do it, because UN is the ultimate body that's responsible for security of the world. So they make those assessments and they do it. So, but the reality of the situation is that, you know, states that feel they should not be part of the ICC are not part of the ICC. The ICC cannot just force themselves on that particular state. But one thing that can happen is that when crimes are committed on the territory of a state party, and no matter who commits the crime there, the court can have jurisdiction to try the perpetrators, even if they are not state party, members of the state party or not. And this is exactly what happened with respect to the situation in Afghanistan. Afghanistan was a state party to the Rome Statute, and I had the jurisdiction to be in Afghanistan. So when I requested the judges of the ICC to look at the conduct of non-state parties, including the US, I must say, to those crimes, you know, that was when I was sanctioned by the regime of Donald Trump, and my visa was withdrawn, and of course when the Biden administration came in, they decided to lift the sanctions against me.
We will have a few more questions, and we'll have Mr. Tal, Dr. Salah, and Ambassador Saine.
Really commend my learned erudite senior for addressing a very complex subject with clarity and lucidity to a crowd of mainly born lawyers. Dr. Bensouda is an inspiration to all of us. I have to say this. I invited Dr. Bensouda to deliver a lecture on International Women's Day as a member of the executive of the Common Lawyers Association. Sorry, my throat. And as I was reading numerous
accolades and recognition, global recognition. I was saddened to observe that Gambia, this lady from Abdoulie, reaching the pinnacle of the world, top, very top, people's enterprise. I couldn't find the fact that, that she deserves the highest order. Senegal, I read Senegal's one, and I'm like, oh, how come Gambia? And I'm making this is the public, it is in the public, I really call on our government to do the needful and recognize the highest order and people of having. Now, I'll come to my question. Dr. Bensouda, as you are very well aware, because I've contacted you several times to seek your wisdom, as a country, we are navigating towards building a criminal accountability mechanism that's based on international criminal law, of putting alongside our domestic legal framework, in other words, a hybrid court mechanism. What do you envisage are some of the challenges we might face along the way?
Your Excellency, Madam Bensouda, I would also first and foremost congratulate you for the very inspiring lecture. There's little doubt that you are one of the prescient teachers of this country, having followed what you have said and done over the years. Now, I have listened to many social scientists here. I want to put the natural scientific twist to this discussion. We are more interested in processes and end results. You have alluded to the ICC, the TRRC process. There's little doubt that the whole investigation was carried out given the resources that were available. The findings were very glaring. And you also rightly mentioned there's multiple recommendations. But some of us who are interested in end results are frustrated by the inertia in terms of implementation. And one cannot but wonder what the cause is. Is it political expediency? Is it the Maslaha syndrome? Or is it lack of capacity and other resources? I mean, one does wonder. So, from your experience, what can be done to put more oil in the wheels so that they can turn faster?
Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister. I'm Bassirou Saine, Ambassador, High Commissioner of the Republic of Senegal to the Gambia. I want to thank Mr. Abdoulie Saine very well for inviting me to this gathering. But I want to say Senegal, as you remember maybe, is the first country to ratify the Rome Statute. In Senegal, we tried the Chadian president, Hissène Habré. And it is why when your candidacy arrived at Addis Ababa, I was ambassador, permanent representative to Addis Ababa. We were very proud to see a woman, a Gambian, applying for this very important post. And all the conference of head of state and government supported your, and they were right because you did it. Your job was very, very nice, very nice. I appreciate why I want to take the floor to say how proud I was and I am today, listening after your presentation. I think you will continue. Even you are now ambassador, diplomat like me, but you will continue to do the job. And what I want you continue to do is to help to fund this, because we are talking about prosecutor and so on, but victims are forgotten sometimes, and they are dying. they are in difficulties financially, and you can help them. With your background, with what you have, you can help to fund this. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Say a few words. When I was, vying for the position of ICC prosecutor, after I already served as deputy prosecutor almost to the end of my term, I was indeed told that I needed the endorsement of the African Union so that at least it will help my elections. And I went there, and at the time I believe there was Sadio Jallo there, if I am not mistaken. Yes. But also there was Basiru. And it was for Basiru, it was as if it's a Senegalese, really, who was, and together with Sadio, they did everything possible. They went around, did the lobbying, and did everything to ensure that, that endorsement was there. And I was actually endorsed as Africa's sole candidate for that position. This was due to their work. Maybe I've not had the opportunity to thank them before, but I've thanked them privately, of course, in public. But thank you very much again. And I also must mention the support that I have received from Senegal throughout my work, really. As you all know, and he's mentioned that, Senegal is the first country that has ratified the Rome Statute in the world, not just Africa, in the world. And they also understood the work and the importance of the ICC in the current circumstances that we are. And even when we had those problems of Africa threatening to withdraw from the ICC, because they said that it is targeting African leaders. Of course, we know what that was all about. But there was this threat, and they kept on having this agenda on the African Union, their meetings, talking about this. And it was President Sall of Senegal and the Senegalese then foreign minister who said that this was not a matter for the African Union, that every African country went by themselves to ratify the Rome Statute. Why should this be an African Union agenda item? And it was from that time that it was dropped, and the rest was easy. Because in the end, I was able to show that ICC was not targeting Africa, and that it was because of a result of Africa coming towards the ICC and asking the ICC's intervention. That's why we had so many cases and situations there. But I mean, to just cut a long story short, I again want to thank you, Bashiru. I want to thank the Senegalese government, the Senegalese people. I have to say that the way they welcome me, the way they really treat me in Senegal. I'm just recently from them on Monday, where I was given the Diaspora Awards of 2023. So really, I mean, Senegal has been very, very, very supportive and very, very good to me. So through you, I thank you. Thank them, Bashir, as well. There was the question of Dr. Salah. Yeah, Dr. Salah, thank you very much for those questions you asked about the processes and end results. Of course, this is what we all want to see. And in my remarks, I did mention that what we want to see, what we have to see, is implementation of those recommendations. I think I was very clear in saying that. I cannot definitely speak to all the intricacies that are happening, because perhaps I'll be speaking out of turn. Maybe I don't know all the information that is there. But what I can say generally, and I think one of you did request that, my experience, what I can say generally is there are a lot of steps that have to be taken, especially in some countries, and it's a general answer that I am giving. In some countries, sometimes you find that the laws that allow you to try international crimes are simply not there. They're not in existence. And you have to go through the process of enacting those laws, bringing them into existence to be able to create all these courts and tribunals or whatever mechanism you want to use to be able to deal with that. And that maybe touches on the hybrid court that President Saine has mentioned as well. Because the fact of the matter is that you must also have the enabling legal environment to be able to do some of these things, especially when it comes to accountability issues. You must make sure that the laws are there and the laws protect you. Indeed, I have also mentioned that we need to have that reform. If that is what is stopping us, we need to look into that, have that reform, and be able to move forward. Because again, I emphasize the importance of implementing the recommendations. I cannot claim any other thing or political. I think Jan mentioned that, Jen. I cannot claim that because, as I said, I mean, from what my experience is, I can only talk about what I know intricately, but not really what is preventing. I think this is a question that I am sure the Attorney General or the, not even the judiciary, because I think it's really the AG, and perhaps even the president of the Bar Association, to looking into it to see what are the obstacles that are stopping this from happening, because it has to take place. And I think there was also the issue of also investigations, about investigations. Some people are saying that the matter was investigated and so on, but I just wanted to highlight that the investigations or inquiries, let me call it, that happened before the TRRC cannot just be taken hook, line, and sinker and put in a tribunal. And that is the evidence. That is not the case. Maybe I can share that with you. Because investigations into any crime have to be independently done. Of course, what the TRRC has been able to bring out will be a very, very good source, to provide lead evidence, as we call it. Lead evidence into what you really want to see. And it can make it a lot easier than if you had to start from scratch to investigate into any situation. So people have also got to understand that, because I hear many people saying, after all, people have said what has, investigating for a criminal case and doing a commission of inquiry is different. Because the test that you have to pass during a criminal case is beyond reasonable doubt. That is the test that is on all prosecutors to be able to dispel before the judges can say, okay, we agree with that. But you cannot just take commission of inquiry findings and say this is the evidence. So people need to understand that as well.
Okay, guys, this is the end of the question and answer period. We thank Dr. Bensouda for her eloquence and excellent job in responding to the questions. I will now call upon my dear friend and brother, Baba Silla, to give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, my colleagues, friends, members of the Nyang Sanneh Institute, which I am proudly a member, a founding member of. Now, I'm also happy that I would be giving the vote of thanks. I'm not giving a nice gobbledygook, but which makes my task easy and simple. Joxe kàddu yërmande lu baax la, dafa rafetal, dafa yokkaat, dafa taxawal dëkk yóbbu ñu ñëpp kanam. Now, what I'd like to say is, on behalf of the Nyang Sanneh Institute, is that we have been very honored to have such a high-profile legal luminary, a person with a vast sea of experience and knowledge, and the ability to put it across with such eloquence and clarity. It's a rare gift. So we must say a big thank you to Sister Fatou. I must also say a big thank you to our partners. And a big thank you to the representatives from the embassies of Senegal and the United States of America. I think the guest speaker walked a nice tightrope in trying to balance out the local nuances, the laws of the land and international. I am impressed, and I think that is going to be my take home, that there are limitations as to what the ICC can and cannot do. And a few things have become clear to me, like I was always felt, like was raised here, that the ICC was just for Africa. I felt that. And it was only the Africans being brought into that justice system. But now things are as clear as daylight, although, of course, I cannot say that everything is clear. But be that as it may, I must thank everybody for coming to this lecture, to this gathering, and I hope that from now on, you all know the Nyang Sanneh Institute is in existence, and please lend out a hand to support us. Now, Sister Her Excellency has mentioned the fact that, and additionally, of course, my friend Abdoulie has also mentioned that we will be doing a lot of research work to inform policy. I think that's a very important plank of the Institute. And I want to implore all the intellectuals here and abroad to chip in by way of their sharing their knowledge and their experience, as well as to support young researchers who are very enthusiastic, who would also want to make a dent in the lives of their country. I must say a big thank you to Fatou Bensouda, our program director, to Imran, Professor Saine, Mr. Jao, Hadija Diallo, Amin Jai, and they say Kulinju. I will not try to call any more names. So please, watch out for us, and thank you all very much for coming, and God bless.
Thank you for having me. The Nyang Sanneh Institute had its inaugural lecture this afternoon, and our keynote speaker was the Honorable High Excellency Dr. Fatou Bensouda, and we were very happy, very privileged to have her as our lecturer. She talked about the intersection between domestic and international law, and how they can be reconciled to render justice to victims and so forth and so on. The Nyang Sanneh Institute is a year old, and it already has gathered some momentum and is making a name for itself in the country. Fundamentally, we are about advancing research, which serves as a basis for good decision making. We are also interested in questions that have to do with gender, interfaith dialogue, to say the least, and then the diaspora, how we can incorporate them beyond remittances to make them viable partners in the development process begun by the current government. So in a nutshell, this is what the Nyang Sanneh Institute is about.
And aside from some of these key areas you mentioned, what are some of the other fundamental issues this institution will look into? I know there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and every institution is built on something that it moves to try to forward. So what other areas Nyang Sanneh Foundation will look into?
The Nyang Sanneh Institute is also very interested in youth, the question of land and land reform. We are really trying to do as much as we can, but the idea is we're going to do it all. What we seek to do is to provide briefs, policy briefs, on almost anything that is of importance to the Gambia and Gambian people. Short, very brief, provide policy information and suggestions to the powers that be, as well as entities that could further the development process and render justice, especially to victims.
And finally, what is your take on today's convergence, and what do you have to share with the general public?
I think today's convergence highlighted a star, for lack of a better word, somebody who is internationally recognized. And really, we celebrated her for her accomplishments. This is a lady who is one of us, but she's yet to be recognized formally by the Gambia government. She's been recognized everywhere else. So in doing so, we recognize you, the press. We recognize each and everybody who contributes to the development of this country. And finally, we need justice. And the Nyang Sanneh Institute is all about justice and the furthering and deepening of the democratic process in the Gambia.
Assalamu alaikum fulbe tube ndarabe fulbe tube ko min garani on do hotel do Bagadaji hotel tawede idande institution Nyang Sanneh Institute e jono tawaye mabbe ko wadi ko sinci o school lo woni o do modo were sewde mun do modo. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum salam.
E inene
ko Demba Diaw wetemi ko Nyang Sanneh Institute ko mi member dal.
Aka member. E hal min gay mi tawi on do institution ay mi do yimbe hobe jewti do ha guest speaker hodi en keb ko jewdanda yimbe sengo Nyang Sanneh Institute.
Okay, so nani Nyang Sanneh Institute. Well, ko wadi professor Gambian be dido wonno be United States. Goto mbo we Suleiman Nyang, goto mbo we Lamin Sané. Ko be fo be yalti be nani dal be mai dal be wurani joni kono ko hemno be inde affaire social research ko dum wado ko wadi set o institute pour innire be o pour amin ko institute o wadata ko wada affaire research social research pour affaire social issues dal ko dum be wadata topoto ko wadi hande be wada inaugural lecture be addi o Fatou Bensouda ko ne Gambian High Commissioner wonde United Kingdom ko be addi o pour o halana yimbe be dal wada yewtana yimbe be affaire social justice o amin transitional justice ko dum wadi ko affaire justice dal ko halanno do ko dum wadi ko amin ko interest institute ko pour façon dum dere addata yimbe wadbe hebbe inde dal adda be yewtida e jama o dal ko dum wadi risino wadi institute wada so ni wano ko odo woni inaugural ko woni first lecture mem wadi kono ko continent faton dini ko mi adda yimbe hewbe inde hebbe dum hebbe gandal dal pour be arabe yewtida e jama o dal ko dum wadi risino wadi dum hande.
Hande non halaji maddi important halama do te arbe do fo mashallah nani ko haali do ko e non ko mo tawre ni bedande yimbe ko affaire institution ko hodum be pala institution hoto yotto e makamun e der Gambia
andi komin solli wondema andi sai member be Nyang Sanneh Institute ko yimbe hewbe iwbe he makamaji hewdi dal professeur ji hen be nanda ko janginono be e university e yimbe wombe he dulaji kewdi e mani kono be wona he lamu hebe woni de ko nono ko private individual kono anduda be hebi experience e dulaji kewɗi e aduna e Gambia ɗo so ko ɗum waɗi ɓe ari together ɓe soldal message maɓɓe aussi pour ko ɓe haalata fof yettano laamu ɗum yettano yimɓe leydi ɓe yettano aduna fof anda wondema ko ɗum ɗo foti waɗe affaire society o ko ni society o foti yaaru probléme aji society ɓe waɗa ɗum discours ɓe daara dal ko hono affaire o waɗirte pour enen fof wonden gotum pour naɓɓen leydi meɗen ndi yeeso te adda jaam e aduna hene ko ɗum waɗi o society e ɗum Nyang Sanneh Institute ko ɗum darani dal
eyyi joni ɓaali time ala mi waccamade ko ɗum mawɗa yewtande caɗele hoɗum mbawɗo keɓɗon e darduɗol o institut poɗɗo ni
well institute o minen solli dal o heɓa ko well ɓoyani ko darna dal kono ni wano influence makko no heeɓi mana he leydi heeɓi doole he leydi e dal because sa laari han yimɓeɓe hewɓe andano institute o waɗi kono sa laari hande arɓe ɗo ɓe ko yimɓe heɓɓe makamaji mawɗi gari ɗo hande ɓen ɗon fof ko ɓe nan institute o ɓe andano institute o kono joni si iwi ɗo han amin continat dal minen adda yimɓe hewɓe heɓɓe mana heɓɓe gandal dal ɓe ara ɓe yewtida e society o andi ɗum so si waɗi hen ni wano probléme aji society meɗen ɗi en ɓuytoto dal neɗɗo waɗat ɗi adresse amin darano heɓirten probléme aji pour solve probléme aji kewɗi dal
ok joni miɗi bandira yimɓe ko mowɗa min ɓeydande en boyɗa
non ko noon rek komi solludal yimɓe fof ɓe anda wondema Nyang Sanneh Institute ari he Gambia ɗo so joni ko interest Nyang Sanneh Institute ko pour waɗa feere waɗidiral yiɗe fooɗo probléme aji yimɓeɓe darano waɗa tadi jooɗoɗen dula goto waɗen discours sa andi sa yii probléme aji ɗi heeɓo he leydi yimɓeɓe ɓe kaptatoɓe ɓe weññitatoɓe ɓe waddato ɗumen koɓe tawi koɓe yewtani koɓe jewtima ɓe jewti dula goto e yiyat probléme aji ɗi en gandat e keɓat solution to ko ɗum waɗi Nyang Sanneh Institute minen colli dal o continue no komin waɗata ko dal
jarama
jarama
Yeah, man, walking